country. Join us live in the studio by calling in on 0706 048 5853 or 0915 570 8347. And you can also join us live on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel on High Voltage News. Like, leave a comment, and share the video for others to be part of the conversation. This morning, we'll be discussing a very important issue affecting communities across Nigeria. We'll be talking about the men and gender-based violence. But before we go into that, we'll quickly take a look at the newspaper headlines to see the top stories making the headlines on today's papers. On the Punch newspaper, insecurity. Federal government approves 94,000 new enlistments. And police set to take 50,000. Ministry fast-track 30,000 paramilitary enlistments. Army eyes 14,000 fresh soldiers. Next on that, EFCC arraigns ex-Labour Minister Ngige today. EFCC is set to arraign the ex-Labour Minister and the former Anambra State Governor, Chris Ngige, for an alleged 2.2 million fraud. All right, so let's see how it turns out. LP rules out automatic ticket for Peter Obi. Labour Party rules out automatic ticket for Peter Obi. And next, ambassadorial list. Oshiomhole Ndume lock horns over Omokri's nomination. Still on the Punch newspaper. Nigeria killings. US officials prepare high-level briefing for Trump. Local refining boom slashes petrol imports by 6 trillion naira. Fubara pushing Rivers towards fresh crisis, says Speaker. All right, lastly on the Punch newspaper, South governors. PDP mourn Bayelsa deputy governor's death. On the Nation newspaper, Bayelsa deputy governor dies at 60. Meter crisis. FCCPC seals Ikeja Electric headquarters. Our challenges going into 2027 polls by INEC chairman. First Lady, less identify with less privileged. Still on the Nation newspaper, Fani Kayode, Omokri, Yakubu Ugwuanyi, Ikpeazu, others get Senate panel's nod. Rivers lawmaker faults Fubara's claim on peace meeting. And again, EFCC to arraign Ngige today for alleged contract fraud. All right, so on the Guardian newspaper, pricing weak tourism infrastructure threatening $2 billion dirty December targets. Dangote launches 1 trillion naira education fund to support 1.3 million students. Budget turmoil deepens as Tinubu prepares 2026 estimates ahead of MTEF approval. Ikeja Electric protest as FCCPC seals office over defiance of NERC order. Ambassadors Ndume, Oshiomhole clash at screening as Omokri. Others take bow. All right, let's see if there's more on the Guardian newspaper. Sanwo-Olu reaffirms LASG's commitment to protection of lives and properties. Tor Network, INEC's toughest challenge in IREV upload, says Amupitan. Okay, that's all we have on the Guardian newspaper. And moving on to the Daily Trust newspaper. Nigerian soldiers still in Burkina Faso after forced landing. Minister says that Nigerian soldiers still in Burkina Faso after forced landing. PDP confirms death of Bayelsa deputy governor. This is a very sad news. So yesterday I heard that he slumped. He just slumped, and this morning I'm hearing that he died. It's a very sad one. So still on the Daily Trust, ambassadorial nomination. Oshomole Ndume clash during Omokri screening. Budget delay impacting businesses. Expert says that budget delay is impacting the businesses. EFCC to arraign ex-minister Ngige today. And again, Dangote launches 1 trillion naira education fund to support students. Man to die by hanging for killing employer. This is on the Daily Trust newspaper. All right, and that is all we have this morning. That is all we can take this morning on the newspaper headlines. Okay, so if you have any comments to make, any opinion to make on what you've heard so far, you can call in on 0706 048 5853 or 0915 570 8347. And you can as well drop your comments on our YouTube channel on High Voltage News. Like, yes, leave a comment and share the video for others to be part of the conversation. Remember, you are listening to High Voltage, your weekday news analysis show, Mondays to Fridays by 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. here on Volt 104.3 FM, where we review and analyze the news and also talk about the issues affecting us as citizens of Nigeria. So we are going to go on a short break. And when we come back, we are going to dive into what we have for this morning. Before I went on, I read the newspaper. I told you that we'll be talking about a very important issue that is affecting a lot of us. So many of the people living in Nigeria, living all over the world, not just Nigeria. We are going to be looking at the issue of men and gender-based violence. Because when we look at this is a form of violence that is rooted in gender inequality. And it also affects the families and communities in a very significant way. It affects communities, if it affects families, and most times people really find it hard to talk about it. There are lots of people that are going through issues like this. There are lots of people that cannot just come out and speak because either they are afraid or there's this stigma that comes with it that they cannot just come out and say it. But we are going to digress into it, look at the issue that most of us are facing. But that will be when we come back. Remember, this is High Voltage on Volt 104.3 FM. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Welcome back to High Voltage on Volt 104.3 FM. If you are just joining us, this is High Voltage, where we review and analyze the news and also talk about some of the issues affecting us as citizens of Nigeria. Whereas right before we went on the break, we read the newspaper headlines, and I would like to talk about some of them. Yes, the part of the federal government that we read in Punch newspaper that says that federal government approves 94,000 new enlistments, and this is a move to tackle the insecurities that is going on in the country. Now, the federal government is set to recruit over 94,000 new personnel into Nigerian security services as part of the measures to tackle the rising insecurity across the country. And under the plan, the Police Service Commission and the Nigerian Police Force will recruit 50,000 police constables. So the recruitment portal is expected to be open to eligible Nigerians from December 15, 2025 to January 25, 2026. So if you are having plans to join the police force, this is the opportunity that you have. Whenever they open it, we are going to keep you posted. So whenever they open it, December 15th, always check the portal so you can join the people in fighting the insecurity going on in the country. Because we know that we already have little manpower. We don't have a lot of them. We don't have a lot of them to tackle the insecurity, to tackle the banditry and terrorism going on in the country. So we need more ants, more ants. And if you're part of those people that are interested, join the police force, yes, and fight for the good of the country. Fight for the good of the country. Now, still on the issue of the enlistment, in a statement on Thursday by the head of protocol and the public affairs, the commission said that the recruitment portal would be open to eligible Nigerians on the said date, December 15th. All right, so before we went on a break, yes, we talked about the issue that that's affecting a lot of persons, the men and gender-based violence. That is what we'll be looking at. And while we are at it, we are having guests. But before we do that, we are going to go on a quick break, just a quick break. Don't go anywhere. So stay with us. And when we come back, we are moving into what we have for this morning. Their work focuses on understanding the causes of men and gender based violence, listening to the experiences of both men and women, and also supporting the approaches that encourage reflection and positive change. The foundation has engaged directly with men to understand their perspective, social norms, and also the pressures that may influence harmful behavior. So, additionally, they've used creative tools to spark dialogue and reflection, encouraging the community to participate in conversation about preventing gender based violence. So, joining us this morning are Esther Ijoma, the Programs Associate of Kuni Foundation, and also Chinelo Iwaba, the Finance and Assistant Program of Kuni Foundation. All right, so Esther and Chinelo, it's very nice to have you here this morning.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Right. Okay, so let's begin by understanding the community and the daily realities faced by residents in Valley. Because for those who may not be familiar with Iva Valley, can you paint a picture of the living conditions and daily realities faced by residents there?
Okay, so Iva Valley is an urban slum, just like we have various urban slums here in Enugu. Iva Valley is one of those urban slums. And coming to painting a picture of the living conditions, I can call it, the word I would use for it is dense. Where you have houses packed together, people living very close to each other, what in Nigeria we call the typical face me, I face you. Just this one is a bit closer. And in communities like that, we have the fact that they grew up observing their fathers, observing their peers, having relationships that I would say are not so, or were not so helpful to their masculinity. I think this contributed to, increasing rates of gender-based violence in areas like that.
Okay. All right. So, like, what's the unique factors that you think make the Iva Valley community particularly vulnerable to men and gender-based violence
Vulnerable to men.
and gender-based violence?
Okay, first thing I would say there is because of the hustling nature of that place, it's as if men are placed under a pressure to um provide for their families, or they are placed under a pressure to, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to, provide food. And you find out that people that live in that area, they just have this mindset of provision. Let me just provide.
Okay.
And when they do not meet up to those, or that standard, they become aggressive
Mm,
towards their transferred aggression.
mm,
So you find out that the man goes out in the morning to hustle, bring in money, and at the end of the day, there's nothing, you know. So he meets the wife at home, like saying, "Give me money for soup or give me money for stew." And in that anger, you find out that he ends up, doing what he's not supposed to do at
mm.
that time.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Chinelo,
Yes.
are there like specific economic pressures that contribute to this vulnerability?
Right. Thank you very much. As my colleague rightly stated, it's like um on a general note, I would say life in River Valley and livelihood generally there, it's like a hand to mouth thing.
Okay.
They're on survival mode. I know some people will say, who is not on survival mode in Nigeria, right? But because it focuses on River Valley, right? So
Yes.
they're on extreme survival mode. Like she said, it's like they're just struggling to provide, and that's it. And during one of the engagements we had with them, one of the men or one of the women rightly told us that sometimes when she asks for money for this, it's not as if the women don't work hard, right? But the men become aggressive because it's never enough. So that's basically the economy there. It's, or will I say, their economic or their living conditions economically is such that it's never enough. Basically, the women there are traders. Iva Valley is very close to New Market, and most of the people living there, the women are traders. And and the men too. They work. They also have shops that they're also traders, right? But then, and that's on the economic side, and generally speaking, and then like she also rightly stated, the living condition is bad. There are no toilets there. They have to make use of the bush. It's a thing. Unfortunately, it's really a thing because it's a slum, and then it's as if nobody even knows that there's a place like that, or basically you wouldn't even know there's such settlements. And still on the engagements we had with them, there are people from different. It's not as if it's a people from a particular state or local government. There are people from all places, and then the settlers there. But like Asiba Valley now, initially Bavali was where Enugu started, and according to what they said, which is true, and it's a place where they have people who were coal miners, and it was quarters for coal miners. So most of them there are generations of the people who worked in the coal mines, and the others are now settlers, looking for people that are looking for the places to get the cheapest accommodation. So that's why we have such living conditions there. Then, yeah, and it's triggering a lot of violence, and yeah, some of the women, there was bitter complaints, and the men on the other side, it's and it takes two to tango actually in a family issue like this. So you don't just tilt on one side. The men had their own walls of reports to give. The women on the other side too had their own. So
All
right.
right. So while you're already talking about reports, during your engagements, what were some of the most pressing concerns that was shared by the men about the social pressures or the norms that influence this violence?
Oh, right. My colleague already mentioned that, I think it's a hand-me-down thing.
Okay.
I think it's a hand-me-down thing.
They looked up to their
They looked up to their predecessors and I don't know, right? So this is a general issue, but like I'll always say, let's narrow it down to Iva Valley community. That is the focus today, right? But it's a general thing. If you watch your parents or your father being abusive, you tend to, the children or the boys in particular tend to grow up to become abusive. And because of the living condition there's really violence. And to be very honest, there's violence, and the women are complaining bitterly. So yeah, I think
okay.
yeah, it's a trigger actually to the
All right. All right, Esther. Now this is about the men, and we are also talking about women in this aspect. So from the women's perspective, what forms of violence or vulnerabilities are most prevalent in Iva Valley?
What forms of vulnerabilities from the men to
The
women?
women are most, yes, from the men to the women, or vice versa.
Well, when you talk about vulnerabilities, I would say that the women are vulnerable in terms of, well, let's say they're the weaker vessels now. Well, I don't know, that would be a very big word, but they they have they have learned to fight life. Let me just use the word. They have learned to fight life because when we did the dialogue, we had a dialogue with the women in Iva Valley. When we had a dialogue, most of the complaints were that they shoulder the burdens of the family. Most of the women. It's not like the men are not working hard, but maybe the way life is. Maybe they are working as hard as they can, but you are working hard and they're not seeing the results. It's not the same thing. So even if you're working hard and there's nothing coming out of your hard work, the women will see that you're not working hard. So their major issue, their major concern was that they are bringing more money than the men. So they are paying for the children's school fees, they are feeding the family, they are doing this, they are doing that, and then the men just stay at home, do nothing. Wow. That's the way they see it. That the men do virtually nothing. The men on their own are saying that, oh, we're working hard, but you will not go and plug money, you will not go and steal money, But the women are saying, we are working hard, where's the money?
But I still want to understand, if the women are the ones carrying all this burden, it's still the same working hard. So how is it that they're able to get something to be able to take up the burden of the family, and then the men is different?
Well, I'll say that women are, maybe let's say it's the line of business.
Okay.
Because when you go to new market, like my colleagues say, you see women selling apple, fufu, you see women selling, there's nothing they will not sell. They can sell anything. But some men are picky when it comes to jobs. They will not jump lorry. They will not sell apple. They'll just, if it's this conductor I will do today, if there's no work, there's no work. Okay. I am, for instance, I'm a painter. If there's no work, there's no work. But a woman will, if apple does not sell, she'll try corn. If corn does not sell, she'll
You're
do
right.
beans. She will just, so, but men, they just, in that their line of job, of either, whatever their options are, if there are no jobs there for them, there are no jobs.
Okay.
You understand? Yeah. So I think that's where the major problem is.
All right. So I see that if from your engagement with them, the women were kind of open to speak to you. What about the men? Were they really very open to speak on this gender-based violence?
Well, initially, that when we talk about gender-based violence, sometimes they feel attacked. So initially they were defensive,
Okay.
But as the conversation progressed, they began to say, well, people are saying the truth too, you know. But sometimes, Kwano, women is their fault. Do you understand? They were quite defensive initially, but as we progressed, they began to see reasons that, okay, this is not really the way to go. There are other forms of, handling conflicts apart from violence. You must not beat, to assert authority. Say, oh, I'm the man of this house. Even if you're the one bringing money, I will beat you if you don't respect me. So there are other forms of, resolving conflict.
In one of the during one of the engagements, one of the men said that it's not possible to live with a wife or and not beat her. So
Are you serious?
Yeah, that it's really like a trigger, honestly. And maybe in my head I was like, yeah, it's possible in your own household.
So they've come to live with that mindset that I must beat this woman.
So, but then maybe I believe as the discussion progressed, he began to see that maybe this is not really, it shouldn't really be, as much as the fact that you internalize this and you think it's one of those things, that just like, I don't know, it has to be one of those things. So, somebody saying that, you see that it's deep seated in him, and it's yeah.
All right. So from what you've already described about Eva Valley, for one who has not been there, you already understand that it's a place that is rooted in deep poverty. Like people are struggling, and because of that, they are very angry. But now we want to look at the deeper causes behind all these issues. What are the underlying issues, like the economic, the cultural, the structural, that seems to drive men and this gender-based violence in the community? And before you go there, how do factors like poverty and overcrowding and also lack of education, because I believe that most of the children or most of the men are not really educated, how does it contribute to the cycle of violence? Esther.
Okay. So, sorry, can you repeat your question?
All right. I said, what are the underlying issues, the economic, that seems to drive men and gender-based violence in the community? And then all these factors like the poverty, overcrowding, and lack of education, how does it contribute to the cycle of violence?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I'll start with your second question.
All right.
That says, how does poverty, overcrowding and lack of education contribute to the cycle? So the first thing I'll say is that, like I said earlier, men are under the pressure to provide. So they feel like I am meant to provide for my family. But because of the high rate of poverty, they are unable to do that. And it creates a certain tension within them, because they know that, oh, if I go back to the house today without this money, this woman is not going to let me rest. And they, on the other hand, because they do not know how to counter, or rather handle that conflict, they will beat the woman to pulp, because the woman is saying that, oh, you went out since morning, you're coming back,
And women, our mouths.
God, that's what I said. It takes time for their mouths to.
The men, on the other hand, because they don't really know how to have that word banter, they do what they can do, And then in terms of overcrowding, there's something that somebody said, one of the men said. He said that because they stay in a place that's overcrowded, news flies. So the woman is screaming, Papa Emeka, you did not bring food for money for food today, and everybody's hearing it, because the next person's house is not even up to 5 walks away, if I'm not exaggerating. And then before you are coming out the next day, you are seen as the man that can provide. So for the man, it's shame, it's angry, and whether he likes it or not, his children are seeing those things.
Yes.
And they are seeing that, oh, my daddy cannot provide for me. If it's a lady or a girl, she's saying that my daddy cannot provide for me. If it's a boy, on the other hand, and he's not being, told what's going on, he might see it as, I don't like the way they are treating my father. Or men have to, assert their authority, you know. And maybe when they watch that, and whenever my daddy comes back, my mommy shouts at him, my daddy beats her, and she keeps quiet. It's like that's the way they should do it here. So you find out that it continues. So the man is poor. Because he's poor, he can't provide. Because the place is overcrowded and everybody has already heard that Papa Emeka is a useless man. He's angry and he's willing to beat. And then because he does not have the required education, what happens is that he doesn't know better. So he doesn't know that there's a way I can sit with my wife and communicate and tell her, without, involving violence. So because he doesn't know that, you find out that he keeps doing the same thing over and over and over. The children learns it, they continue it, it continues. The poverty continues, overcrowding is still there. So the violence continues just like that and like that. So what we need to teach or tell people more, tell them more is that there are other ways of, there will always be conflict. There will always be
Once
conflict.
you're living with someone.
Always. So there are other ways of handling conflict that are, that are beyond gender-based or violence of any form, for that matter. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to say something like that?
Oh well, yeah, the factors you mentioned, poverty, education, culturally. Yeah, on the education aspect, you know, um, for the children, they're actually in school. They're in good school.
Okay.
Or at least they all at the schools around there, the public schools, all the children, most of them, are actively learning. So that's something, but that's formal education. Now the aspect that we as a society should look into is the informal aspect. I'm not sure the syllabus in school accommodates or teaches, no non-violence. There's a way to handle peace. Conflicts and all of that. So it has to be an informal sensitization or whatever it is, make it formal, informal, but there should be this sensitization. That's but for the parents or the adults there, the education level not bad. Yeah, they actually learn it right, but not very much so. But they're far from being illiterate, right? So that's something, right? But it's a mindset thing. Violence is a mindset thing. You watch it, you're likely to do it, or you're likely not to do it. So there has to be a sensitization. And on the poverty aspect, my colleague had already talked about that. Culturally, I think it's still about the same thing. It's still a mindset thing. It's a cultural thing. Bad culture. There's bad culture, right? And it's good culture. So it's bad culture of violence. If anything goes out of control, the only way to put it back in check is to beat. So yeah.
All right. Okay, considering the history of Hiva Valley, one would think that the government would have done something to upgrade the location. But listening to you and knowing that people are still going through a lot in that location, I want to consider the role of government and the institutional support. Based on what you've seen on the ground, what are the most urgent areas where government intervention is needed in Iva Valley?
Okay. Thank you very much. Like you mentioned, by now, Ifa Valley is actually a beautiful place. It's
Okay.
situated on a hilly area. There's Ugu Peak. It's quite a beautiful place, and it's very unfortunate that that place is still like this after so many years. Looking back in history and all of that. If Enugu settlement started there, or not really Enugu settlement, but you understand what I mean?
Yes.
As per Enugu that we have today, it shouldn't be. That place should be a place of attraction. It's a very beautiful the relief there and the landscape and all of that. So for the government, um there should actually be an intervention, to improve their lives when it comes to the housing. Housing is very, very critical there. There can be a low cost housing project where at least 2 rooms for a family, because you see, in a family of 6, 7, they're all using 1 room, and all of that. So low cost housing is one thing that we're suggesting to the government, if that government to intervene on, low cost housing, get it right, make it neat and simple. Then again, every household should have a space. They have to have the privacy. You don't jam people of different backgrounds together. The next door neighbor, when you speak, like my colleague rightly said, you're hearing what your neighbor is saying and all of that. If there will be low cost housing, it should be defined, everyone with their own space, and then of course there will be a charge so that it will be well maintained. But then something affordable. They're earning, right, but they're not earning enough. But if there is decent accommodation, they will be motivated to pay. They will pay, but not in sharp contrast with what they have there as it's the shanty structure, honestly. Shanty structure all over the place. With the brown, if Valley's know, when I was young, one of my aunties said, she was making a comparison and said, "Oh, this roof looks like the ones we see in Ifa Valley." I was very young. I didn't know what Ifa Valley is. I didn't know. But now I'm seeing that really that roof that she was comparing. So they're known with the brown roof settlement area. So that can actually be eliminated completely. That's one thing I was suggesting to the government. Then again, economically too, there should be a thorough research. How can they be helped? Is there anything? Can they be scholarship for the children? Can they be, can their trade be improved? Can they be given more loans if they need that? So yeah, and then education wise, like I said, the children are going to school. They may need assistance. So these are some of the things we're projecting to the government, right?
All right, all right. So because of time, because we don't have much time left, there's you screened a short film, Boyhood, and how did the community respond to the themes presented?
Okay. Uh, yeah, Boyhood of the Night actually was shot in River Valley.
Wow.
Yes, it was shot. In fact, it was the people that lived there, the residents of that area, that made the movie.
Wow.
Yes, so we just had some, people, directors, coordinate the whole event. When we went to shoot the movie, we wanted them to see the impact of parenthood, in raising a child, one, and then wanted them to see how deep negative masculinity has eaten into some of their minds. So we now we wanted to show them what, sometimes you need to see visually to really understand. Yeah, so when we went there and we showed them the movie, as usual, initially the men were defensive that the movie, they are still good men and all of that. But then they were like, yes, they are good men. What do you have to say about this one? You know. And eventually they began to understand that I have a role to play as a parent in raising my child, in making sure that I impact the right values to them, in making sure that I make sure this person grows up to have, you know, a right perception of himself as a man, in making sure that I imbibe positive masculinity into my child, right? And the second aspect of, of the video and what they learned was that, or how they took it, was that they began to say, okay, when a woman says no, she means no. For instance, there are other ways to relate with women that does not have anything to do with violence. So when a man is relating to a woman, whether you're married to her, whether you're having a conversation, whatever the relationship is, you do not have to bring in violence for you to assert that I am the man and I take whatever I want by force. So yeah, it was very welcoming. In fact, they said we want more of this. We want to see. They even highlighted a few things that we should put into the movie in case we want to shoot another movie again. We'd like to see this, we'd like to see that, and they welcomed the whole idea.
Okay. All right. So I have so many questions to ask, but time would not permit me to ask those questions. But before we go, I would like to ask you, Chinelo, since you spoke on the government, how do you think violence in communities like Kiva Valley?
All right. Thank you. Yes, like I already suggested, the low cost housing, the intervention in the children's education. We have to ensure that they're really getting the right education. That it's not just about going to school. Are they really learning? Who are the teachers? It's a big settlement. Even Valley has several sub settlements: the Ugu Peak, the Camp One, the Camp Two, and all of that. And there are schools there. Now on the there are schools there, but is there monitoring? Are the teachers coming around, and all of that? Then again, health wise, there are PHCs there, but unfortunately they're not as they should be. So the government should look into that. What is the health status of the people like? Are they what are they? What's their health status like? Can they access good healthcare and all of that? And the housing I already mentioned. Now, long term, it's not just about coming up with projects and then getting it delivered and turning your backs to go. You have to establish systems that work. Systems like, okay, system that work just like our body systems. It just works on its own, as long as you're not doing something wrong, it works on its own. So there should be a system that works on its own that should be established. Low cost housing, you don't just leave it for them to come and overcrowd it again. It could also be, it takes two to tango, So low cost housing, there should be a system that maintains it. They pay for it. It should be affordable. Then it should be maintained, something like that. And then health wise, it's not just about, we've seen projects like PHCs there, and that's primary health centers. You know, government has in the past intervened, and yet when you still get there, the place is raided, it's far from what it should be. So now, if that's not if like when the government, because I believe it will, when the government intervenes health wise, you know, there should be something to sustain it. Should there be a fee for this? The people that are working there as a healthcare professionals, should they live there, or should they hire people from there that are residents there? Because PHCs, I don't really know much about how they operate, right? But it would be wiser to have people that live there, work there, rather than people coming from far places. So structures and systems that work and all of that. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Chinelo and Esther. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing this important insights. All right. So, what do you want to say?
So I wanted to add to what she said, and I just wanted to say that one of the ways that the government could, ensure that they help in violence is by partnering with, organizations, that are already doing something. Like Kunia Foundation has done a lot of work in empowering women, because they said one of the ways that we can help them depend less on their husbands is by empowering them, economic empowerment. We also have other projects too, like the toilet she mentioned is a project that we have that want to do. We also have other projects that we do in Iba Valley. So one of the ways that the government can help as well, in addition to what they're already doing, is by partnering with organizations like ours, to see that life is better for these people, in a way to end violence.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So it is very clear that addressing men and gender-based violence requires collaboration between communities and grassroots organizations and also the government. So the work being done in Iva Valley by Kunie Foundation is helping to raise awareness, challenge the harmful norms, and also to support positive change at the community level. So we are urging the government, and also if you want to be part of the initiative, you can reach out to Kunie Foundation and join them in the good work that they are already doing. So before we close, I would like to reintroduce our guests. Esther Ijoma, the Programs Associate of Kunie Foundation, and Chinelo Iwoba, the Finance and Assistant Programs Associate of Kunie Foundation. Thank you so much. We sincerely appreciate your time and the work you continue to do to support families and communities in Iva Valley.
Thank you very much, Ma.
All right, so to you that is listening, yes, you've heard all that has been said. Remember that this is High Voltage, your weekday news analysis show, where we review and analyze the news and also talk about issues affecting us as individuals in Nigeria. Join us again on Monday by 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for more of these stories that are affecting us. And until then, have a wonderful weekend. My name is Odili.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Because of time, we couldn't.
Yeah, we came late, so forgive us. But thank God you ended like that.
Yeah, what I would have seen in 1 hour. All right, now, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
You said in 1 hour. Nothing you said was taking very long, but I
Yes. So being upwards